Tower of Pisa, Italian tower pendant di Pisa, medieval structure in Pisa, Italy, that is famous for the settling of its foundations, which caused it to lean 5.5 degrees, about 15 feet, 4.5 meters, from the perpendicular in the late 20th century. Extensive work was subsequently done to straighten the tower, and its lean was ultimately reduced to less than 4.0 degrees. The bell tower, begun in 1173 as the third and final structure of the city's cathedral complex, was designed to stand 185 feet, 56 meters, high and was constructed of white marble. 3 of its 8 stories had been completed when the uneven settling of the building's foundations in the soft ground became noticeable. At that time, war broke out between the Italian city-states, and construction was halted for almost a century. This pause allowed the tower's foundation to settle and likely prevented its early collapse. Giovanni Di Simone, the engineer in charge when construction resumed, sought to compensate for the lean by making the new story slightly taller on the short side, but the extra masonry caused the structure to sink still further. The project was plagued with interruptions, as engineers sought solutions to the leaning problem, but the tower was ultimately topped out in the 14th century. Twin spiral staircases lined the tower's interior, with 294 steps leading from the ground to the bell chamber. Over the next 4 centuries the tower's 7 bells were installed. The largest weighed more than 3,600 kilograms, nearly 8,000 pounds. By the early 20th century, however, the heavier bells were silenced, as it was believed that their movement could potentially worsen the tower's lean. The foundations have been strengthened by the injection of cement grout and various types of bracing and reinforcement, but in the late 20th century the structure was still subsiding, at the rate of 0.05 inch, 1.2 millimeters, per year, and was in danger of collapse. In 1990 the tower was closed and all the bells silenced as engineers undertook a major straightening project. Earth was siphoned from underneath the foundations, decreasing the lean by 17 inches, 44 centimeters, to 13.5 feet, 4.1 meters. The work was completed in May 2001, and the structure was reopened to visitors. The tower continued to straighten without further excavation, until in May 2008 sensors showed that the motion had finally stopped, at a total improvement of 19 inches, 48 centimeters. Engineers expected the tower to remain stable for at least 200 years. The Tower of Pisa, Tower di Pisa, Tower di Pisa, Pisa 1, is the campanile, or freestanding bell tower, of Pisa Cathedral. It is known for its nearly 4-degree lean, the result of an unstable foundation. The tower is one of 3 structures in the Pisa's Cathedral Square, Piazza del Duomo, which includes the cathedral and Pisa Baptistery. The height of the tower is 55.86 meters, 183 feet 3 inches, from the ground on the low side and 56.67 meters, 185 feet 11 in, on the high side. The width of the walls at the base is 2.44 meters, 8 feet 0 in. Its weight is estimated at 14,500 tons, 16,000 short tons. The tower has 296 or 294 steps. The 7th floor has 2 fewer steps on the north-facing staircase. The tower began to lean during construction in the 12th century, due to soft ground which could not properly support the structure's weight. It worsened through the completion of construction in the 14th century. By 1990, the tilt had reached 5.5 degrees. The structure was stabilized by remedial work between 1993 and 2001, which reduced the tilt to 3.97 degrees. There has been controversy surrounding the identity of the architect of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. For many years, the design was attributed to Guglielmo and Bonanno Pisano, a well-known 12th century resident artist of Pisa, known for his bronze casting, particularly in the Pisa Duomo. Citation needed: Pisano left Pisa in 1185 for Monreale, Sicily, only to come back and die in his hometown. A piece of cast bearing his name was discovered at the foot of the tower in 1820, but this may be related to the bronze door in the facade of the cathedral that was destroyed in 1595. A 2001 study seems to indicate Diotis Alvi was the original architect, due to the time of construction and affinity with other Diotis Alvi works, notably the bell tower of San Nicola and the baptistry, both in Pisa. Construction of the tower occurred in 3 stages over 199 years. On the 5th of January 1172, Donna Berta di Bernardo, a widow and resident of the House of dell'Opera di Santa Maria, bequeathed 60 soldi to the Opera Campanilis Petrarum Sanct Marie. The sum was then used toward the purchase of a few stones which still form the base of the bell tower. On the 9th of August 1173, the foundations of the tower were laid. Then, work on the ground floor of the white marble campanile began on the 14th of August of the same year during a period of military success and prosperity. This ground floor is a blind arcade articulated by engaged columns with classical Corinthian capitals. Nearly 4 centuries later, Giorgio Vasari wrote, Guglielmo, according to what is being said, in the year 1174, together with sculptor Bonanno, laid the foundations of the bell tower of the cathedral in Pisa. The tower began to sink after construction had progressed to the 2nd floor in 1178. This was due to a mere 3-meter foundation, set in weak, unstable subsoil, a design that was flawed from the beginning. Construction was subsequently halted for almost a century, as the Republic of Pisa was almost continually engaged in battles with Genoa, Lucca, and Florence. This allowed time for the underlying soil to settle. Otherwise, the tower would almost certainly have toppled. On the 27th of December 1233, the worker Beninato, son of Gerardo Bottesi, oversaw the continuation of the tower's construction. On the 23rd of February 1260, Guido Speziale, son of Giovanni Pisano, was elected to oversee the building of the tower. On the 12th of April 1264, the master builder Giovanni di Simone, architect of the Campo Santo, and 23 workers went to the mountains close to Pisa to cut marble. The cut stones were given to Reinaldo Speziale, worker of Street Francesco. In 1272, construction resumed under di Simone. In an effort to compensate for the tilt, the engineers built upper floors with one side taller than the other. Because of this, the tower is curved. Construction was halted again in 1284 when the Pisans were defeated by the Genoese in the Battle of Meloria. The 7th floor was completed in 1319. The bell chamber was finally added in 1372. It was built by Tommaso di Andrea Pisano, who succeeded in harmonizing the Gothic elements of the belfry with the Romanesque style of the tower. There are 7 bells, one for each note of the musical major scale. The largest one was installed in 1655. Between 1589 and 1592, Galileo Galilei, who lived in Pisa at the time, is said to have dropped 2 cannonballs of different masses from the tower to demonstrate that their speed of descent was independent of their mass, in keeping with the law of free fall. The primary source for this is the biography Racconto Storico della Vita di Galileo Galilei, historical account of the life of Galileo Galilei, written by Galileo's pupil and secretary Vincenzo Viviani in 1654, but only published in 1717, long after his death. During World War II, the Allies suspected that the Germans were using the tower as an observation post. Leon Weckstein, a U.S. Army sergeant sent to confirm the presence of German troops in the tower, was impressed by the beauty of the cathedral and its campanile, and thus refrained from ordering an artillery strike, sparing it from destruction. Numerous efforts have been made to restore the tower to a vertical orientation, or at least keep it from falling over. Most of these efforts failed, some worsened the tilt. On the 27th of February 1964, the government of Italy requested aid in preventing the tower from toppling. It was, however, considered important to retain the current tilt, due to the role that this element played in promoting the tourism industry of Pisa. Starting in 1993, 870 tons of lead counterweights were added, which straightened the tower slightly. The tower and the neighboring cathedral, baptistry, and cemetery are included in the Piazza del Duomo UNESCO World Heritage Site, which was declared in 1987. The tower was closed to the public on the 7th of January 1990, after more than 2 decades of stabilization studies and spurred by the abrupt collapse of the Civic Tower of Pavia in 1989. The bells were removed to relieve some weight, and cables were cinched around the third level and anchored several hundred meters away. Apartments and houses in the path of a potential fall of the tower were vacated for safety. The selected method for preventing the collapse of the tower was to slightly reduce its tilt to a safer angle by removing 38 cubic meters (1,342 cubic feet) of soil from underneath the raised end. The tower's tilt was reduced by 45 centimeters (17 plus 12 inches), returning to its 1838 position. After a decade of corrective reconstruction and stabilization efforts, the tower was reopened to the public on the 15th of December 2001, and was declared stable for at least another 300 years. In total, 70 metric tons, 77 short tons, of soil were removed. After a phase, 1990 to 2001, of structural strengthening, the tower has been undergoing gradual surface restoration to repair visible damage, mostly corrosion and blackening. These are particularly pronounced due to the tower's age and its exposure to wind and rain. In May 2008, engineers announced that the tower had been stabilized such that it had stopped moving for the first time in its history. They stated that it would be stable for at least 200